horror, as I said before, is really on a roll these days. And in the last year, it certainly had its ups and downs. We've had a few surprising disappointments at the box office, like Grindhouse, Hostel Part 2, and The Mist. And then there have been a few surprise hits, like 1408 and Halloween. The New York Times in July proclaimed the death of the horror film after Hostel 2 underperformed. So, but then again, then you have something like 1408, which comes out in the middle of the summer and is right now is the year's most successful horror film. So I'd like to ask my panelists what their take is on the current state of the genre, and we'll start on the end there and work our way towards Peter.
Well, I think we do a lot of remakes at our company, and some would say, not us, but some would say that remaking things is just regurgitating stuff, that's already been done and not very creative. That's actually not true at all. There's a great deal of creativity that goes into remakes. You have to add a completely different spin, and you have to find your own freshness, and you have to find a way to make it relevant to your specific audience. And I think that's a talent that across the board is necessary in the horror genre, the ability to take something that is tried and tested and find a fresh angle and a spin that makes it very, that makes it perfect for its particular audience. We have done a lot of J-horror movies, and beginning with The Ring, which was obviously successful, and since The Ring, there have been many, many, many J-horror movies, and most of them have done really well, but people started to say, has the genre burned out? And, the genre has burned out, but then as soon as someone does something a little bit different, a little bit fresh, maybe that's bringing in a filmmaker, or maybe it's taking a concept, or who knows really what it is, but if you can put a fresh spin on it, to invigorate it, people will come and they'll see it. So I think, where it is today, I don't think that horror is either on the ascent or on the decline. I think audiences just need to know that something is a good product.
And Guy, what do you say?
I don't think, you can't kill a genre one way or the other. I mean, for my company, I guess, we're making White Noise, which was kind of the start of supernatural thriller ghost stories, and obviously did really well in the box office. But then we tried to make a movie like Slither, which gets great reviews, but made no money in the box office. So, my company's a production financier, and we're trying to make commercial films at an independent level, and really we have to take a point of difference. You always try to have to be left of center, and maybe you can start a trend, and especially with what we're doing now with horror. I mean, this project we have now, it's heading more towards a classical sense. You're trying to get roles for a star, you're trying to get an interesting director, you're just trying to raise the bar, and I think that the sort of programmer sort of horror films, which, that kind of derivative same thing, maybe whether it's an ensemble sort of thing, you have to do something different, I guess. And what we're trying to do really now is try that star-driven, where you're making a quality drama as well as you're scaring the crap out of people. So yeah, I don't really see it on the decline. I just see a shift, and it's a matter of not really following trends, but finding a way to really have a clear voice, So I hope that's helpful.
And Amy?
Well, I agree with Guy and Gabriel, too. If you have a good concept and a good movie, people will come to see it. And, for example, with 1408, that was such a cool and interesting concept that you hadn't seen in a while, so it just really broke out. And I think the trend of, the torture films that have been happening for a while, people were just looking for something different while they were waiting for Saw 4 to come out. So I definitely don't think horror's, on the decline. And Screen Gems, and I work for TriStar Pictures as well. We've done, a lot of video game movies like Silent Hill and the Resident Evil franchises, and Underworld, where it's sort of like action horror. So I think there's always a place for that. And then we do remakes as well. When a Stranger Calls, we're doing Prom Night, and we're actually working with them again on another movie called Quarantine, which is a remake of a Spanish film. So just a fresh approach and a cool spin, and great director, great script, those always help. but I think the genre's fun, and people love to come and see it. So I definitely don't think it's going anywhere. We just got to come up with cool, fresh ideas to keep you guys coming.
And Peter, both of your horror films were big successes in the 90s, Flatliners and, of course, The Craft. What would you like to add to the current state of the horror genre?
Well, I think horror is healthy and doing great and ever interesting. But I think, and it's interesting to sort of track how the genre, changes and weaves. But as writers, which a lot of you guys are and which I am, I think that if you try to chase the trend, you're already about a year and a half behind the curve. So I think it's suicide in a sense. And the one word these three keep saying is fresh, fresh, fresh. And that's really your obligation, is to find your personal take, whether you lean a little more towards the torture stuff or a little bit more towards the drama stuff. The challenge for you guys is going to be to find your voice and bring it. And impress these guys, which is not easy, because they read a lot of scripts.
In terms of making and breaking a horror film, I'll direct this to Amy. How much of it is timing? How much of it is marketing? What do you feel are the right bases to hit when selling a horror movie?
Gosh, well, there's a lot of things that go into it. I mean, timing is definitely an issue. I mean, that's the first thing we do, is pick a release date. When we figure out that we're going to greenlight a film, when's a good time for it to come out? And, obviously the obvious October, fall, a lot of horror films tend to come out, and a lot after Christmas in the January, February. And they used to be called programmers, but that's not really the case anymore. That's where you begin. And then, again, it's looking at the movie, looking at the script, and coming up with a new way. I worked on a film called The Messengers, which was part of Sam Raimi's company, Ghost House. And it was a very well done movie, and basically it was sort of a haunted house, let's say. But when I watched the film and our team, we noticed what was really cool about it was that the young children in the film could see something that the adults couldn't see, and that they were more in touch with the paranormal. And so that's how we decided to position the film, because we thought that was a fresh approach, which was also in the film, but maybe not what the entire film talked about. It was, back and forth. But we do a lot of testing of material, and I may be jumping around a lot. And we did 2 different trailers, actually. One that was straight, like an Amityville type of horror, and then this one with this approach, talking about how children see things that adults can. And the difference was phenomenal. It was just so much more. People just responded so much better to that piece of material because it was, like we said, fresher. It was something they hadn't seen before. And so that's where things kick off for me, is really getting a trailer that works and tests. And that's a very tricky, long process, because the films, all the good stuff I can't show in horror movies, the gore or the actual scares. And a lot of the films I work on are PG-13 versus the R, and so there's just a long process of making it look really interesting and scary to you all. So I don't know if I answered the question, but also a big part of marketing for us is online. It's huge, and I've seen the growth. I've been at Screen Gems 8 years. It's just changed everything, especially reaching a target audience like people who enjoy horror films. So getting a cool teaser out on the internet or an amazing clip, that usually sets us off really well too in our marketing campaign.
Guy and Gabriel, as development executives, what do you look for when writers come in to pitch new horror films?
Well, I think the writer is a very important part of it. Just getting to know the writer actually first, and then during the pitch itself, because it's not just the pitch; it's faith in them as executors of that idea, and so that's a big part of it. Just hearing them as people. The idea itself, the hook is really the big thing, I think, especially in a pitch. In a script, if the writing is amazing, you maybe don't need as much of a hook. But in a pitch, that's definitely what you look for. You look for that, either that big idea or that that setup or that really cool ending that no one would ever imagine. It doesn't really matter what it is, but when you hear a hook, you know it, and it doesn't necessarily make the film high concept, but it can. We look for that first, and then I don't want to abuse the word fresh, but you look for that. You look for that something that you haven't heard a million times before, and that's sort of as applicable to story as it is to just tone and just general feel. Sometimes the story itself will be pretty straightforward, but there are aspects of it that seem almost like poetic or just sort of like strangely existential. Or maybe it's just like, it's the dialogue. It's hard to know exactly what, but the hook, and then for that little thing that's different, and then something that elevates it. I mean, we're okay with a nuts and bolts story and something that's just mainstream and cool, but there has to be some ingredient that elevates it, and I think we look for that too. And then, the rest is just, we hope the writer knows the craft well enough that they can sort of lay it out and not have any glaring holes, and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's always good. But yeah, that's pretty much it.